Hey,
Hey, everybody.
hey. How you doing? It's another Wednesday, water
N-
cooler Wednesday, and
Right, not just
we're
any Wednesday, water cooler Wednesday.
right, and we're right here for you every Wednesday at 6 p.m. And we're so excited to always be here to talk about important topics about the home buying process, and we also discuss selling as well. So it's not always just about buying. So,
Yep.
but my name's Dion Branch, and I am with Allure Dream Homes.
And I am Lisa J. White, the house money mama with Nexa Mortgage, where brokers are better.
Yes, yes. Today we're going to talk about the down payment assistance program. We've been talking about it for a few weeks now.
Yep.
And so we know that it's an important part because everybody doesn't have all the money that you need in order to purchase a house, and sometimes you have to take advantage of some of these programs that are out here.
Absolutely.
And so, but when you're taking advantage of those programs, we want to make sure you're asking the right questions, right?
Questions. That's right.
Yeah. So,
So I think first, just because we are going to kind of use some abbreviations. So just so you understand, when you hear us say DPA, that stands for down payment assistance. So
yeah.
just so everybody knows, as we're talking throughout the podcast today, that is something that we'll reference. And there are different kinds of down payment assistance programs, and we do just want to talk today about what that is, why does it matter, what kind of programs are available, what kind of questions you should ask. Because sometimes people don't get the right information because they don't ask the right questions.
Right. Yeah. And people find themselves, I want to sell my house, and oh, you had some restrictions set up, and oh, I didn't know that.
Right.
And it's
Or
one of
like we talked about a few weeks ago, people getting ready to sell their house and they're like, oh, that's right. I forgot I got that money. Let me go find that paperwork because they
right.
have restrictions on their loan,
Yeah.
that they're going to have to adhere to when they get ready to sell the house.
Yeah. So a lot of times, so those are definitely some important things that you need to know. So I'm gonna ask Lisa some questions since she's the money mama.
The money mama.
If she can tell us, what's out here, she can help us answer. So some questions that you might want to ask is like, what down payment assistance programs are available? It's like in my area. Like,
Yeah, that's actually a very good question because a lot of times the down payment assistance programs or DPA programs, they are specific to your locale. There are some programs that are like nationwide. Like for example, there's some programs that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have, like the Home Ready program. You can be anywhere in the United States if as long as you qualify for that specific type of mortgage, then you'll get that help. They do like $4,500 for you at close, and it's directly from Fannie Mae. So, that's something that it doesn't make a difference where you live. But then a lot of programs, like, for example, here in Illinois, we have the IDA program. A lot of people have heard of that. It's throughout the whole state. So that's a program that would be specific to only if you are in the state of Illinois. And then we also have some programs that are specific by county. Oh, wow, I can't think of the name of the one. That there's a couple that in Cook County specifically that they are, targeting areas where they want people to move into,
right.
like there.
What's
Yeah.
the neighborhood down payment? Is that the one you were thinking of?
Yeah. Yep. But it's done by neighborhood loans, I think, or they have something to do with the administration of it. But yes, something like that. That would be specific because they have I think it's called MMRP. I believe
Yes,
that's,
yes.
yeah.
Hmm.
Right. But they have specific areas that they want you to stay in. So you have to know what's in your area in order, to figure out what you can qualify for.
Yeah. And then there's some programs like we talked about before about your job occupation, right? So
Hmm.
there's some teacher down payment assistant programs,
Yep.
police officer programs, So there's a
And
lot of
even employers, there are some employers that they do stuff directly for their employees to help them become homeowners too.
yeah,
So it's not a bad idea if you plan on buying a house to check with your employer because they might have some, kind of funds aside where they help you or match, your down payment or your funds or something like that. I've heard of things like that before too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So now, I mean, we just kind of answered this question, but it says, does my target home qualify?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. Does my target home qualify? Absolutely. So again, that would depend on the program itself because some of the DPA programs are going to be specific to area. So like for example, there may be specific zip codes. Like I remember last year we had this program and only lasted for a few months, but what they did was anybody that either lived in or was moving to a specific zip code. There were some zip codes here in Illinois, in our area, in the Chicagoland area. There's some zip codes in Georgia. I'm licensed in Georgia too. So there are zip codes there that, were targeted areas. There were zip codes in a few different states. So
Hmm.
if you move to or from any of those specific zip codes, then your house would have qualified for that program.
Right.
And then, if we go back to some of the other types of programs, it doesn't matter where you live. You just, if you qualify for the down payment assistance, then you just qualify for the down payment assistance. It don't matter where you live.
Yeah. Now, a lot of time we're saying neighborhood, right? And people automatically think, oh, I don't want to move to Inglewood. I don't want to move to right? But there
Yeah,
are some programs that are the neighborhoods don't always have to be a bad neighborhood, right?
that's true.
Right.
Hmm.
So I've seen Glenwood
Oh, okay.
qualify for down payment assistance. Like
Hmm.
so there's a so don't think, oh, I don't want to research that one because I don't want to live in Inglewood or I don't want to live in Roseland or those neighborhoods,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Because I don't want to say those neighborhoods are bad neighborhoods because those actually neighborhoods are actually really coming up. So
Hmm.
a lot of development is happening as well. So
Okay. Yep.
um
It's a good thing to keep in mind.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm doing the next one as well, which is, do I qualify for down payment assistance? How do they know they qualify?
Ooh. Well, that is a spider leg type answer that you're gonna have to get to this question. It's got a lot of legs to it. Okay, so qualifying for down payment assistance. So I do want to take my time on this one, only because a lot of times people get a lot of misinformation about this part. People just assume, well, I need the money, or I don't make a lot of money, whatever. And so because I don't, then I'm going to qualify. Down payment assistance programs are made for people like me, and in some ways they might be, but in some ways they not, because it depends on what you've done to, like me and you always say the P word, prepare.
Right.
So down payment assistance programs still do have stipulations, and they have qualifying criteria. So for example, credit score. Usually, every down payment assistance program is going to have a minimum credit score.
Yeah.
I have seen some as low as 580, but I'm going to be honest. My experience in this field tells me that if 580 is the low score, it's probably not going to be the best program, because what they normally do, the way that credit works, everything is tiered. So if you have a lower score, you like the bottom of the barrel, and
Hmm.
you're not going to get the best terms and conditions and things like that for the loan. Whereas if you're higher, then those higher scores are actually going to get the more favorable conditions for the
Yeah.
program itself. That doesn't mean you won't qualify. I'm not saying that, but I'm being honest about how it really works. So,
Hmm.
for example, there may be fees, fees that have to be paid. There may be a restriction on how much money is available because the cost of the interest rate itself may be more because of the fact that your credit score is lower.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
we
one
have.
thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say we do have a question. So it's
Okay, what is the average score? Okay, that's a very good question. I would say that if you're looking to get down payment assistance, you should target to have your score around 660. That's usually good. 640 would make it too, but 660 is better.
yeah.
Usually with the 660, you're in the higher part of the tier at that point. So if you can get your score to a middle score, would need to be a 660. That's the best. And then that way you shouldn't have any problem qualifying for any program.
Yeah, and we have Maurice, he was here last week to help
Mhm.
with boosting up your credit score.
Yep.
So, even if your score is below a 660, let us know so we can connect you with the right people.
Absolutely, because a lot of times I sent something to Maurice just yesterday, because he had been working with this young lady. Now she didn't even pay him. I'm gonna be honest. She didn't pay him. She didn't bring him on for services. He gave her the advice that she needed in order to
Hmm.
boost up her score. The last time I had looked at her score, her middle score was a 608. Today, when I looked, no, yesterday when I looked at her middle score is a 688.
Okay.
Just something, and this is a 30-day period we're talking about. I pulled her credit at the beginning of March, and now I pulled it again yesterday on April 1st, and within 30 days, because she did what it was that he told her to do, 80-point difference between her middle scores.
Yeah, yeah. So Maurice does help out a lot. So he gives free advice, kind of mentoring type of just to direct you if you want
Yep.
to self improve or if you need his help, then there is a cost to it. But he is available to help you to get you where you need to be. And that's what Lisa said, 580. And I just want to say, like, we can do a 580, but it's best to just take that time
Take the
and
time.
get you up to where you need to be. So,
Yep. Yep. You might as well maximize your opportunity, right?
mhm,
It's not every day that you buy your very first house. So credit score definitely is something you want to take into consideration. Another thing is income limits. Some people assume that they qualify, but they don't know what the income limits are. And you got to keep in mind, it's very much an automated thing. So, if your income is over by $1,000, guess what? You don't qualify
mhm,
because there's a cutoff. So yeah, you got to keep in mind that there are going to be income limits. Now, normally I can figure that stuff out ahead of time, because they have a chart that I can use, and we have a way to calculate income to determine if you do qualify or not. Now, here's another thing that sometimes people get confused, and this is people think that you have to be a first-time home buyer. That is not true. It's not true. Not in every situation. There are some programs still that have a requirement for you to be a first time buyer. And keep in mind, a first time buyer is really just somebody who has not been on title in the past 3 years.
yeah,
So, if you bought a home 20 years ago or 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, then you still qualify as a first time home buyer by our definition. Now, usually the big issue that people are concerned about that administer these programs is the status of occupancy. So a DPA program is designed to help you get into your primary home. So
yeah,
that's the place where you're going to live. That's going to be the primary place of residence for you. It's not going to be an investment property. It's not going to be a vacation home. It's
right.
going to be where you are there, three weeks out of every month at least. You know what I mean? Like this is
Mhm,
your primary
mhm.
home. I
We
see
had,
another question that says, do they also look at your current utilization? Yep, they definitely do.
mhm,
Um, in any loan, they're going to have to take into consideration your debt to income ratio. And you just said utilization, so I'm assuming you mean in regards to credit. So I want to address that too. That is going to factor into your score. So when you have high utilization on your credit cards and your revolving debt, then you're also going to have a lower credit score. So you want to keep your utilization low, so then that'll make your credit score go higher. As far as the other term of utilization, that would be your debt to income ratio, that how much of your debt is being used for you to pay for things like your housing and other things that you have a need for. That's something I take into consideration, and it does also factor into the program itself. We're going to actually talk about that a little bit in just a minute. um, there's another question. You want to
Yeah.
answer the question? Okay, I see it. So it says, do they consider the bankruptcy discharge dates, or no? Yes, it's not the day you initiate it, it's the date of discharge.
Mhm. And
So
then,
it also may depend on whether you did a chapter 7 or a chapter 13. That might be a more personalized question that you can get with me on, and then I can help you answer that. But when we're looking at counting from bankruptcies, we definitely are counting from the date of discharge.
okay.
All
All
right.
right.
Good questions. Good questions. I'm loving this.
Yes, yes. So, how much assistance can I get?
Hmm. Depends on the program. So there is a difference in programs. Like I know even IDA does this. They have a couple of different programs. So I know they have some that are fixed, like a fixed dollar amount. And then I think one of theirs is a percentage. And that's
Mhm.
usually how most programs work. They'll either be a fixed dollar amount, like you can get, say, for example, up to $7,500. That might be the cap, that dollar amount. Or some may be, a lot of the ones that I administer are percentage. I usually like percentage because if you're buying more, you get more. You get more help.
Mhm.
But you need more help if you're buying more, right? So I like the percentages a little bit better, but there are programs that do both. I have programs that do 3.5%. I have programs that would do 5%. And then I also have programs that would do up to a certain dollar amount, like up to 7,500, up to 10,000. And one I think goes up to 20,000.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So one thing we talk about often as well is just being able to stack on top of things, right?
Mhm.
So you could get a down payment assistant program. You could get some down payment assistance. You could also get credit from the seller to assist you with your down payment as well. And then there might be another program that you could also take advantage of that might give you some assistance. So don't think of it as like, oh, I only can get one help from one area. You can get help from a couple of
Multiple.
different areas.
Yep.
But so to definitely help you with bringing your down payment down.
And there can be restrictions as far as, outside assistance. Most programs, though, are definitely not going to have an issue with seller credits. They encourage seller credits. So, because they figure if you need help from them, then it can't hurt, to allow the seller to be able to contribute something as well. So, usually you will be able to get seller credits. FHA, that's up to 6%. Conventional is going to depend on the LTV, but
Mhm.
normally you can get a percentage of help from the seller as well when you're buying. And then there are programs that allow you to use other programs. Like they'll say, okay, we're comfortable with taking, third lien position, or something like that. And so if you wanted to put another program in front of theirs, you can do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so when we're working with the seller to get credit, that's all in our negotiations. So when we find the house and then we negotiate them with them your price, and then if they will be willing to give you credit as well. So,
Absolutely. Yep. Come
all
on,
right,
Dion, with the questions.
all right, all right. So is the assistance a grant or a loan?
Hmm. That actually is an excellent question, because a lot of times people get them confused, and they assume that because it's down payment assistance that automatically means that it's a grant. Mm, Not always.
Hmm.
So most programs nowadays, and I understand where it comes from, because traditionally down payment assistance programs did used to be grants, like the what did they call it? I think it was the Nehemiah grant. They had that way back in the day. That was a federal government thing. And
You old. I don't know about that.
ah, no, I'm just more experienced. Thank
Oh, excuse me.
So they don't have stuff like that really anymore, like, stuff on the federal level where they help you. Now more of the things are either privatized or they're localized. So at this time you have the programs that are their actual grants. I have very few, like I can think of two that are really truly grants. And what I mean by a grant is the money is provided at closing and you don't have to do anything else.
Right,
There's nothing else on your mortgage. You don't have to have restrictions on when you can sell your home or anything like that. They don't have anything
mhm,
like that. Just the normal restriction that you have to wait 6 months to refinance. But that's even if you didn't have a DPA program, you would still have to wait 6 months to refinance because they
right.
always want recoup time in between.
I,
So
I think Fabi told us that one of the IDA grants would IDA is a grant, right? Like one is a grant. I believe that it
I'd have
was
to go
no.
back and look at that. I don't remember any of theirs being grants. So I know that then this will answer the other part of the question that you just asked me too. They're forgivable, but
Mm,
it's still considered a forgivable loan. So what that means is that there's still going to be a second lien on the house. So you have a first mortgage and you have a second mortgage. That second mortgage is going to be designed as what they call a 0% interest forgivable loan. And that loan will basically have a prorated amount that every month when you make a timely mortgage payment, they will forgive a portion of the loan.
okay, right,
Yeah.
right.
And they usually they span that out over 5 or 10 years.
Mm.
Most programs. I've seen them up to 30, but the average is that they span them out over 5 or 10
Right.
years.
So basically, they're saying that you have to stay in the house for 5 years, and then you don't have to pay it back at
And
all,
then,
like a
right,
period of time. So, so it's not always five; it might be 5, 10 years or something. But
right.
if you decide to move prior to that end of that period, then you have to pay that prorated
Yep.
amount back. Hmm.
Whatever amount has not yet been forgiven will be included on your principal balance to be paid in order for you to get a clean title. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so now, just to kind of take that one step further, that second lien that I just talked about can also be a repayable. So we just described a 0% interest, non-repayable. You don't have to make any payments on it. It's forgiven. It's a forgivable loan, but it could be a second lien that is repayable, which means that you do make a second payment on your
Hmm.
mortgage. So you have a first, even though they give you the money at closing, but you're paying it back over 5 or 10 years.
Right. And sometimes it might just be like $50 or something like that. Has that what have you seen like the amount of the repayment be? Like
Well, $50 wouldn't really be much of a down payment assistance. I mean,
over 10
mo-
years, like because they're paying over 10 years. Like
right.
what is their payment back?
It
Uh
depends. It
additional
depends
payment.
on. It does depend on the loan, and
Mhm.
how much help they actually got.
Right.
So that's a big part of it.
So
I
like
mean, but
10,000.
you can't be surprised if you have an additional $100 of a payment.
Oh, okay. Right.
So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, so
But that would also have to fit into the parameters, that they set for the debt to income ratio, because now that's part of your debt.
okay.
Does it make sense?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then
Um
go ahead. I'm sorry. You got another question. You got some good questions today. You got another
Yeah,
question?
I was just trying to. I think we answered the other one, but so I'm gonna go to. Are there restrictions on how to use the funds?
Yes, a lot of times there are restrictions. Some of the programs actually just is really toward closing costs, and so closing costs could be anything that's on the CD, essentially, right? Because they think of the down payment assistance funds as being your money, so you can use it to pay pretty much whatever you want on. But they also do have programs where they restrict, like say for example, remember we did the MMRP for Racine? Remember that a few
Hmm.
years ago?
Hmm.
Okay. That program that they had was specifically a down payment program. So I was only able to apply those funds to decrease their principal balance.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all I was able to do. I couldn't cover any title fees. I couldn't pay down the interest rate. I couldn't cover any lender fees. I couldn't, do escrow. I couldn't do any of those things. It was only able to be used for the down payment, the percentage that would take down from the sales price. That was it.
Right.
So
Okay.
some of them are very restrictive like that, and
Hmm.
they give you specific line items. Most, because I'm a lender, I've looked at the paperwork on the back end of these things, so they will give you a very specific list and say these are the items that are approved that we will cover.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, that's good to know, and your lender is gonna share that detail with you. So always make sure you get involved and ask your lender questions, like
Hmm.
these, right?
Like these questions. That's right.
Right. So does the DPA affect my mortgage options?
Yes, as far as lending, I would say yes, because um so let's think of it this way. They try to put it real nice. They say, "Oh, well, contact one of our approved lenders today." That basically means you got to use our people. You can't use your own people. Right? That's what they're saying. So it does affect your mortgage options as far as that goes, because like if you already had a relationship established with the lender and you want to use them for lending, but they're not on the list for that
Hmm.
particular program, then now you can't use them and get the benefit of that program. You'd have to look for a different program. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, that you can't just decide to use any company that you want to use if it's not on their approved list. So that's
Right.
something to think about. Um, the I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that would be the main thing as far as mortgage options, because it really comes down to lending. But it also does mortgage options as far as the restrictions, like how we just talked about, the
Hmm.
different things, for whether you have a second lien, how long you might, how it will impact your plans for how long you may stay in the house. And if you don't stay in the house the amount of time that they're saying that you should, then how that's going to have an impact on your future transaction. So yeah, options as far as that goes, I would say yeah, because you get some of those restrictions.
Right. Yeah. 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 And then we've kind of talked on this, but we could talk about it again. It says, what happens if I sell or refinance? So that's even another
Right.
refinance my home.
That's a good point, because a refinance pretty much is almost the same as selling. In this case, if you refinance the entire first mortgage, then you have to pay off the balance the same way you would if you sold the house. And then from that balance being paid off, then now you get into a whole new loan if you do a refi. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's very similar to if you had decided to sell the home and move, downsize, upsize, whatever. If you decide to do something like that, that would be the same as refinancing. So the very things that we talked about, as far as whatever wasn't forgiven, whatever part was not forgiven already, that's going to have to be paid back in order for you to complete your refinance.
Right. And so this is something that's important to think about, because Lisa and I always talk about buy the home and not the
Ma-
rate.
right.
Right.
Marry the house and date the rate.
Right. Right.
Yes.
And so, in this case, there might be, when you're buying the home and dating the rate, and then the interest rate goes down, that is something that Lisa and you will have to kind of work out, or whoever you're refinancing with, which we know is Lisa. But anyway, right, right. So but when you work in refinance, when you're coming back to refinance, that could be something that you might have to deal with.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. And while we're talking about it, for the overall, costs, the a lot of times DPA programs, they are higher interest rates. So
Mm.
like for myself as being a broker, one of the things that I'm known for, just in the broker world in general, we typically have access to much more favorable and competitive interest rates. We're usually more competitive. So we don't really have that control to be able to, adjust rates or, give you that competitive rate because of the fact that we're not in control of the interest rate. It's the master of the rate is the one who giving the money
Yeah.
at closing. So they're the ones who determine the rates, and they, determine the resale restrictions and things like that. All of that is determined by whatever entity is going to be administering the funds for the down payment assistance program.
Yeah. So it's important to kind of know these things because maybe you don't need the down payment assistance and you could go ahead and just get a lower rate interest rate instead
Mhm.
of getting the higher rate. But definitely, talk to your lender and get an understanding so that you can say, okay, you make the best decision of, I save my money and utilize that money for furniture, things like that, with the
Yep.
understanding that I have a higher rate, or I just say, okay, I just rather have a lower monthly and no additional payments, things like that, and then
Mhm.
I'll just go ahead with no down payment assistance, but we still can work on seller credits, things
Yep.
like that, in order to bring bring the amount of money that you have to bring to closing. So there's always multiple options, and that's why there's multiple questions that you should
Right. Very good point, Dion.
ask. All right, last question. How does down payment assistance impact my overall home ownership costs? And I
Well,
think we kind of just talked about it.
yeah, we just answered that one, right? I don't think we need to rehash it, but yeah, it's those interest rates being higher, the resale restrictions and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. So
mhm. So if you're ready to explore home ownership, you need to start asking these questions today and
today,
find out what this DPA thing is all about and if it's suitable for you, or do you want to look at some other options that we can help you explore.
right. And always remember, like, if you're not ready to buy this year and you're thinking about purchasing next year, still give us a call, still let us know so that we can start planning because we're all about the plan.
Preparation, that P word,
Right.
prepare.
Right. And so we can make sure we connect you with Maurice for a credit repair, things like that, in order to get you where you need to be so you can qualify for these programs without any problems and not have to suffer through it with a lower score or higher interest rate, stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So we did it again.
I was just looking at the time, like, okay,
Right.
we
We
went
did
over
it.
that went by very fast
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. I always, we have a Facebook group that's called Let's Fire Your Landlord. You can always join us there. We have different conversations that go on in that group as well. And you can
Mhm.
always watch these videos on YouTube. So we have them. We're there for you wherever you want us to be. But thank you again. We're excited. Again, my name is Dion Branch with EXP, and I'm going to try to show you my phone number. And if
Coming
you
right up.
right, coming
That's your
right
drum
up,
roll.
right. So if you need to contact me, if you're interested in purchasing the home, give me a call. This is my number. You can always reach me. And then if you want to start with lending, which is normally your first place to start,
Yes.
give Lisa a call.
Here I
And
am.
right. And we can definitely get you started where you need to be. So, all right.
Thanks everybody for coming and fellowshipping with us tonight and getting that good tea.
All right. Thank you.